Hi, Wendy Murdoch here. Welcome to my library. We're going to read from more modern master this time. We're going to pick a selection from Walter Zettle. And his book here is Dressage and Harmony, because he again discusses the rider's seat. And so in keeping with that thought, I thought we would visit a little more modern day author. We'll start with the rider position that he describes. Only with a correct position can correct aids be given. The elegant, calm, and quiet position is rooted in function, not only in a sense of aesthetics. The beautiful position is really beautiful because it is effective. And I just love that, because that describes how I approach it from the Feldenkrais perspective, that we need good function when we're riding. It's not just about looking pretty or holding a pose on the horse. It has to be effective. And so often when I work with my riders and make a change in their position and they go, well, how does it look? And I'm like, what did your horse say? How did your horse respond? And that we're so embedded in our self-image of, does this look right, from an outside perspective, instead of really sensing what our horse does and feels in response to our position. So that's where Steinkraus talked about experimentation, and I agree with him, that we need to be willing to make some experiments and feel, what does the horse tell us with our position, as opposed to what some outside person thinks about how we look. I know that one can never have a truly perfect seat and position, but we must always strive to be as close to the ideal as possible. Little mistakes will always creep in, and it is very important to be watched by one who has a knowledgeable eye. The seat. The seat is the basis of all position and aids. The legs, back, and arms have their foundation in the seat. The seat transfers the rider's weight to the horse, and how it does this is the single most important factor in influencing how the horse will move. The rider's seat should be deep and elastic, and should follow easily the movement of the horse. His weight should be carried on the back third of his pelvic bones and the deepest part of the saddle. The rider must allow his weight to rest on both seat bones. So many position problems are associated with the rider trying to avoid this basic principle. They will pinch with the thighs and stand on the stirrups, or rotate the pelvis forward, lifting the seat bones out of the saddle. A hollow back or shoulders too forward are common signs of this. Even the position fault of elbows coming out from the rider's sides is usually an attempt to avoid sitting deep. The rounded arms tie into a tight shoulder and rib cage that is trying to keep the rider off the saddle. In any of these strategies, to avoid sitting, the rider inevitably bounces and disrupts the horse's gaits. Of course, this becomes a vicious circle, because the bouncing and disrupted gaits make it more difficult to relax and sit deep. From the deep seat, the lower body stretches downwards to the upper body is stretched upwards. In the correct seat, the pelvis is tipped slightly back, and I emphasize slightly, allowing the back part of the seat bones to contact the deepest part of the saddle, while still allowing the leg to hang quite vertically. If the rider tries to over-exaggerate a long straight leg, he can obtain a forked seat, where the knee and lower leg are too far back, and more importantly, the pelvis is rotated forward, bringing the back part of the seat bones out of the saddle. So we're talking hollow back position or anterior tilt. The rider that rotates too far back in his pelvis sits in a chair seat. So now he's talking about a rounded back position. In this position, the backward rotation of the pelvis prevents the legs from hanging down. And the knees are too high and the lower leg comes too far forward. So as you round the lower back, it's going to cause your knees to come up. As you go to too far onto your pubic bone with your seat bones out behind you, the leg is going to pull back. So he's looking for that same balanced middle position. One should pay much attention to one's seat and be frequently reminded of mistakes that might creep in. When necessary, one should be lunged to do exercises to improve the seat. Ideally, the rider should be lunged once a week to maintain a correct seat, even when the rider has started competing. And that would be such a luxury these days, to have a good lunge horse that you could sit on and have somebody trained that could lunge you and have you do exercises and point out things to correct your position. Unfortunately, so many horses today aren't trained to the lunge, and so many riding instructors don't know how to teach on the lunge. So it's a bit of a lost art. And I'll have riders come to me and say, well, can you give me a lunge lesson? And the first thing I'll say is, I don't know your horse and how he lunges. And so, everybody's got different techniques. So it's not fair to the horse or fair to me to try and give you a lunge lesson on a horse that I don't even know how he lunges. But lunge lessons can be really valuable, and if you have that opportunity, that's great. I highly recommend that if you're going to lunge your horse, you have a lunge whip. And the reason for carrying that lunge whip is a safety factor. Many years ago, I had a friend who was lunging her horse, and he kicked out and hit her in the liver and ruptured her liver, and she had no way to send him away from her. So that's just always something, if you're going to be working with someone's horse or giving a lunge lesson, it's really important to carry that lunge whip for safety. It's not about whipping the horse. It's about being able to maintain the distance of the horse from you. All right, so if you have any questions about Walter Zettle's perception of the seat, and when he talks about being a little further back on the seat bones versus forward, please make a comment. Let me know what you think about that. How does that resonate for you? And we'll see if I can answer your questions as we go forward. So thanks for coming to the library. Take care. Bye.